Okay, so let's dive into Act 4 of Hamlet and look at some more lines, passages, scenes that'll help us continue to discuss who this character is and the situations that he finds himself in throughout the course of this play. So, like we have in every single discussion of each act, we've talked about Hamlet's state of mind. And so we're going to start here for Act 4. And this question of madness is going to continue to come up, particularly from Act 4 and Act 5, particularly with Gertrude and Claudius. We see them still discussing the whole idea of Hamlet's madness. Other people have maybe let that go a little bit. Maybe we're trying to figure out, or maybe we're seeing that that's not necessarily where Hamlet is in his essence. But in any case, after Gertrude makes this comment, mad as the sea and wind when both contend, which is the mightier, in lawless fit behind the arras, hearing something stir, whips out his rapier, cries, a rat, and in this brainish apprehension kills the unseen good old man. So what she's saying here was that it was Hamlet's madness that caused him to act rashly and kill Polonius. So we're going to talk a little bit about the killing of Polonius a little bit, but in any case, this is what she's saying here. You know, he's got to be mad to have done this. And then we get some instance that there may be some melancholy going on with him, which is definitely a character trait that we have traced throughout. So if you look at Act 4, Scene 3, starting about line 19, the king, or a little bit above that, maybe a line 16, the king says, "Now, Hamlet, where's Polonius?" Hamlet says, "At supper." And the king says, "At supper where?" Hamlet says, "Not where he eats, but where he is eaten. A certain convocation of politic worms are e'en at him. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fat all creatures else to fat us, and we fat ourselves for maggots. Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service. 2 dishes, but to 1 table. That's the end." And so what you're seeing here, it is somewhat, he's joking, but what he's doing, and it would have been very common and something that the audience would definitely have understood, is he is stating here, setting forth what is called a memento mori. And that just means a reminder of death, and that all are equal in death. And that's what Hamlet is basically saying here. Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service. 2 dishes, but to 1 table. That's the end. So in other words, we are all going to die. So again, just a very reflective, contemplative, melancholy state of mind here. And then in the soliloquy in this act, we see Hamlet, and I'm joking here as I say to act or not act, that is the question, but clearly he's picking up on some of those same themes in the to be or not to be soliloquy from Act 3. So if you turn here, you will see Act 4, Scene 4, starting about line 32. And he goes into this action versus inaction, and he compares himself to Fortinbras. And he says, I do not know why yet I live to say this things to do, sith I have cause and will and strength and means to do it. Examples gross as earth exhort me. Witness this army of sus mass and charge, led by a delicate and tender prince, whose spirit with divine ambition puffed, makes mouse at the invisible event, exposing what is mortal and unsure, to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. Rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument, but greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor's at the stake. How stand I then? So he's basically saying, here's Fortinbras taking action, right, to reclaim things his father's lost, to get his own idea of revenge. And he's comparing it to himself. How stand I then, that have a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reason and my blood, and let all sleep, while to my shame I see the imminent death of 20,000 men, that for a fantasy and a trick of frame go to their graves like beds, fight for a plot whereon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the slain. So in other words, he's saying, I've had a father killed, a mother stained, and I can't do anything about it. And again, he says, I let it all sleep, while to my shame, so there's that sense of I'm a coward again. I see this army of Fortinbrasses marching on for a fantasy and a trick of fame for basically nothing. They go to their graves for a small plot of land. And then he says, oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. So here we see Hamlet going, okay, I'm going to act. I'm going to take revenge. And this is pretty much what, we see him fighting with throughout the course of the play. Now, one of the things that's interesting here to think about is that we see Hamlet delay in his action, and the time he doesn't delay, what happens? Well, Polonius dies. So now he is buoyed up. I'm going to take revenge again. I'm going to do this time. And so let's see what happens this time as this act unfolds and Act 5 unfolds of what happens when Hamlet does decide to act. And then there's quite a lot of interesting politics going on in this particular act as well. We learn that Claudius is fearful of Hamlet, and he sends him to England to be killed. So if you look at scene 1, starting around line 13, the king says, "Oh, heavy deed," meaning that Polonius has been killed. "It had been so with us had we been there." And there the us is that royal we. Basically, he's saying, if I had been there, it would have been me. So he gets frightened. "His liberty is full of threats to all. To you yourself," meaning the queen, that's who he's talking to us, meaning himself, to everyone. So we know that he is frightened and basically says we're going to ship him off to England. So if you see in scene 3, lines 51 through 65, and this is where you see the plot unfold. "Follow him at foot, tempt him with speed, bore, delay it not. I'll have him hence tonight, away, for everything is sealed and done, that else leans on the affair. Pray you make haste. And England, if my love thou hold'st it aught, as my great power thereof may give thee sense, since yet thy Cicatrice looks raw and red after the Danish sword, and thy free awe pays homage to us. Thou mayst not coldly set our sovereign process, which imports at full by letters congruing to that effect the present death of a Hamlet. Do it, England, for like the hectic in my blood he rages, and thou must cure me, till I know 'tis done, however my haps, my joys were ne'er begun. So he's written a letter sending Hamlet off to England. When he gets there, there's going to be a letter directed to the king saying, you need to kill Hamlet. Now, a couple of lines that I think are quite interesting back in scene 1. If you look in lines 28 through 65, let me find, no, 28 through 45, sorry. I'm trying to turn and talk at the same time. Well, that particular passage, I'm sorry, that particular passage is just, basically saying the same thing. So we're sending him off to England. There's just more evidence there. All right. Now, we have Fortinbras arriving in Denmark, Act 4, Scene 4. And I just point this out, just kind of drop this here for us to think about as we're getting toward the end of the play. So Fortinbras tells the captain to go greet the Danish king, tell him that by his license Fortinbras craves the conveyance of a promised march over his kingdom. The rendezvous, if that his majesty would aught with us, we shall express our duty in his eye and let him know so. So again, here we are. Can we pass through your country on the way to Poland? So Fortinbras has lived up to his end of the bargain. When his uncle told him he could not march into Denmark to fight, he's marching through to Poland, and Fortinbras has acquiesced to that. And then he makes this specific charge to the captain that he's giving this message to. He says, go softly on. And if you see what softly here means in the text, it means slowly or circumspectly. So in other words, go thoughtfully on. Don't do anything to create a fear. Don't do anything to create some tension that, oh my gosh, here is the Norwegian army outside our gates. Just make it clear that they're passing through. So Fortinbras, even in his desire to avenge his father, he is acting calmly and circumspectly. Something that no one else in this play seems to be doing. It seems like everyone is acting very rashly. And then Hamlet is caught constantly, what do I do? Do I do it? Do I not? Do I do it? Do I not? But it seems that Fortinbras has the plan. Fortinbras has a plan, and he's working his plan, and he is acting and is very committed to, as I say here, to go softly on. Then in this scene also, we have Laertes and Claudius plotting to kill Hamlet with a poisoned sword, and they're going to have a duel. Laertes is going to poison his sword. He is going to stab Hamlet, and that's going to be that. And that's how Laertes is going to get his revenge. And Claudius is definitely in on that plot. So you can read those specific lines again if you need to. And then finally, an interesting scene in this act is Ophelia going completely mad and drowning. And so please, if you have the chance, watch the clip that I included of Ophelia's madness scene. It's very poignant and I think will really help you understand the state of this particular character. And one of the things I want you to think about is, you know, what is the difference between these two female characters? We have Gertrude, who is on the royal side of things, who makes particular decisions in order to keep her power or to keep her status. And those decisions can be debated about the morality of them, but nevertheless, she does what she must, and she seems deeply committed to Hamlet throughout the play, and and certainly in control of herself. Ophelia, on the other hand, she's of a lower social status, and she really has no power at all. She's completely dependent upon the men in her life. Hamlet, who betrays her or denies his love, and then her father, who is murdered by Hamlet, and then her brother, Laertes, who has been gone. And so she is completely alone. And so that raises some significant questions about her status in this play and what Shakespeare's saying about the status and roles of women at this particular time. Remember, there was a female monarch on the throne. And so things that she did may or may not, have been to everyone's liking. Although she was very, very popular, she made conscious decisions to stay single. Well, Gertrude was not afforded that particular luxury. So I think that Shakespeare is calling many things into question about the roles and the status of women in this particular play, and contrasting a royal noble woman with I wouldn't say a common woman, because clearly Ophelia has a place in court, but a woman with fewer options because she is not of noble birth. So please continue to read and let me know if you have questions.